Well, there's been plenty of off-field drama, but I want to start with some footy, and in particular the fallout from last night, a 45-point turnaround, seeing the Blues win convincingly in the end over the Tigers. I'll start with Richmond and the news fallout there. Jack Riewoldt has had scans this morning on a suspected broken thumb that may require surgery. We'll have more on that on Triple M tonight as we get more details from that, but clearly some concerns for the forward who was hampered, according to Damien Hardwick, during the match as a result of that thumb. He went down to the rooms at one point. It looked like he just copped a knock, but Richmond suspected it's a broken thumb. Prestia, he'd had a pretty limited preseason with a hamstring injury. He's had scans this morning on that hamstring. We'll have more on that this afternoon. That's not good news for Richmond because they took a cautious approach with Prestia in the preseason. He really is the heart and soul of the side. Hardwick explained all about that post-match, and that doesn't look good for him, certainly in the short to medium term. In terms of weeks, we just don't know yet. The broader question surrounding Richmond, discipline issues last night. They gave away 8 50-metre penalties in a game where it's all about territory. That's 4 kilometres given up simply on account of 50-metre penalties. So Damien Hardwick acknowledged that was an issue. He sort of acknowledged playing Graham might have been a mistake, particularly given the fact that with rotations he could only play limited game time with his limited pre-season. And I guess the broad question for Richmond fans today is the era over? They looked a bit tired in the end last night, but I think off one game of evidence we can't conclude that just yet. Having said that, there's some pretty big question marks over the Tigers. Admittedly, Damien Hardwick seemed pretty cool, calm and collected after the game last night, in particular praising the Blues midfield. For the Blues, some big stories there. Michael Voss, his first game, re-coaching, if you like, in senior ranks. A great victory for him. You couldn't help but feel good for him in the end. The Blues song was incredible at the G. I know there was, well, I shouldn't say only 72,000 fans there, but it was slightly less than expected. But the noise at the end when the Blues army and supporters get going. It was a great atmosphere. Of course, Sam Docherty, what a heartwarming story. The best, a recurrence of his testicular cancer. Boldly set himself for round one. Some guys thought he was joking that he was even aiming to play that, and to see him kick that goal late in the second quarter last night was just absolutely incredible. But I think the big story for mine, of course, is Carlton's midfield. I mean, they've got obviously Cripps going there at the moment, as well as Hewitt and Shearer. They've got Walsh to come back in, but also in the VFL yesterday. I know that Carroll, Voss is keen to play him. Dow, I think, was one of the best on ground in the VFL yesterday, and Phillips. So they've got 3 guys to come into that midfield as well, at least. I think it's going to become a very big talking point this season. So that was the main fallout, in particular Riewoldt's injury from last night. It's good to be finally talking about some footy. Lots of things also to discuss shortly. I want to give you the latest on the Luke Beveridge fine situation. There's a little bit of controversy there surrounding who's paying that fine. I want to give you the insight, the real insight I'm getting from Spring Street and types of places on the actual issue with the cladding at the MCG. And there's a bit of trade news that's already passed across my desk. In particular, I want to talk about Ben King, which clubs made a big play for Ben King recently, as well as St Kilda, and also whether the AFL's kicking in on any of his money. So Luke Beveridge issued a apology, a lengthy one yesterday in regards to his tirade against a journalist, which was out of character on Wednesday night. Now, there's a $20,000 contribution which the club will make to a nominated charity. There's some discussion today whether Beveridge should pay that. And I'm trying to get to the bottom of that with the Bulldogs, and we'll have more on that perhaps on Triple M tonight. But there's a little bit of discussion there as to whether Beveridge should pay that and whether the club paying that, which is the current circumstance, is a sufficient deterrent as far as Beveridge is concerned. It'll be interesting to see what the discussion is there and what the clubs say on that. In terms of Amit Bains, the CEO, he has acknowledged in a News Corp article this morning that, look, he wasn't worried about Bevo's state of mind, but it was out of character for Bevo. So to that extent, there were pretty detailed discussions just to make sure Beveridge was, well, for want of a better term, okay yesterday morning when obviously the president of the Bulldogs and Amit sat down and discussed these things with Luke Beveridge. Gil McLaughlin spoke this morning and clarified there'd be no further action from the AFL's part concerning Beveridge's conduct. It's been dealt with by the Bulldogs. But I do think an ongoing discussion point will be who pays that fine. Now, I've been banging on about these fireworks at the MCG on Wednesday night, and a few people on social media said, why are you worried about the fireworks? Melbourne won the game. There was lots to celebrate. The fireworks weren't the focal point. But there's a broader story in regards to the fireworks, and it concerns, as I revealed yesterday on this podcast, some issues regarding the cladding at the MCG. There's a bit of background to all this. At the moment, we can't have fireworks at the MCG. The AFL, Gil McLachlan, did clarify this morning on radio that the MCG, in his opinion, is 100% safe for spectators. So just to emphasise that, there's no fire risks. But for the moment, there's fireworks are banned at the MCG. This is despite the fact that there were fireworks for the Stars game under similar circumstances, albeit hotter temperatures in January. And the MCC had approval for these fireworks to go ahead even up until the last minute. But it's my understanding this is the background issue and the source of contention and discussion going on behind the scenes. These fireworks were cancelled about 10 hours before they went ahead by the fire services, and the MCC had cleared all this with the fire services 2 weeks before. So there's certainly a view, I believe, in official circles that the cancellation of the fireworks and the raising of the cladding issue has a huge political motive. Now, I'm not a political reporter, but I think it's fair to say there's some perhaps issues between the fire services and the state government. And whilst I'm not questioning the motives of the fire services, I think there's some speculation even that a lot of the cladding remaining at the MCG is legal, and that's actually the subject of a mediation and ongoing discussion at the moment. So the background to all this is it sounds like it got pretty political when the fireworks were cancelled and the cladding was raised as an issue on Wednesday night. And I think in the background there's a bit of toing and froing and a bit of politics going on in regards to that. Just some trade news in terms of, player movement, a few issues floating around. I spoke to Jayden Short's manager yesterday, Anthony McConville. They've put forward a long-term proposal to Richmond concerning the free agent and a new deal for him. I think there's optimism that deal will get done. He was the best and fairest one of their premiership years, a highly regarded player, 20-plus possessions again last night. So I think they're moving forward on that deal, the arrangement now in Richmond's court. Just some news on Ben King. Of course, the Gold Coast Sun extended his agreement by 2 years. He suffered a knee injury. He'll have to rehab this year. Highly sought after. St Kilda are obviously the club that made the massive play for him. There's no doubt in my mind that the Suns' money was upwards of $800,000 plus, and St Kilda would have been right around that mark in terms of the money. King obviously felt that he wanted to reward the Suns, and he's quite happy up there for the moment in terms of being part of that playing group. But St Kilda made a big play. But it's become across my desk, and it's quite clear that Essendon and to a lesser extent Collingwood also made pretty significant, not plays, but expressed fairly extensive interest in King around those contract negotiations. So it's just interesting that happened. A broader question is whether the AFL kicked in money for King's contract. No is the official answer. It's an agreement between the Suns and King, but King has currently got an AFL ambassador deal with the AFL. Now, that will have to be extended going forward. There's no guarantee that'll be the case. About 40 or so players in the competition have an ambassador deal with the AFL. You can get a Telstra one and an AFL one. And the usual amount of money which you can apply for under that AFL ambassador deal is about $50,000, and that's an estimate on what he'd currently get. So the AFL only found out about King signing, I'm told, on the day that the Suns announced it, which was that Tuesday last week. So they haven't sort of got into the nitty-gritty of the deal, but there is scope for the AFL to contribute to King's money over the next 2 years, which is a pretty standard arrangement for superstars or budding superstars like him across the competition. Another contract one to keep an eye on is Darcy Moore. I think it's a pretty much a fait accompli that he will re-sign with Collingwood. There's good optimism around that. I do note, though, however, on the eve of the season, he hasn't officially signed yet, so it'll be a relief to Pies fans when it hopefully gets done relatively soon. But just some trade nuggets and news this morning concerning those three players.